Okay. It is now 9:02 a.m. on Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. And I call to order this meeting of the Maine Gambling Control Board. My name is Steve Silver. I'm the board chair. Before we go any further, I'll just explain the circumstances under which we're holding this meeting. This is obviously a hybrid meeting. The physical location of this meeting is at 45 Commerce Drive in Augusta. We're in the, what is it, Champlain room?
Yes.
All right. We're also providing a virtual attendance option, which the board expects that members of the public who want to attend will be able to do so. And there is a Zoom link that's posted on the unit's website, and obviously it works. You can see we've got a number of people on Zoom and some board members attending on Zoom. So it's my intent that if you're on Zoom or you're in person, same opportunity to comment for members of the public. The unit also posted the agenda on the website. So hopefully if you wanted that, you're able to get it. I checked it, it worked. So the link is on there, and obviously you can always reach out to Director Champion and he'll get you on the email list if needed. So with that, I'll introduce the other board members, confirm we have a quorum. So we'll start with you, Chief March. You say where you are? I think you said Boston.
Just had to find my, excuse me, my mute button. Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Noel March. I'm a resident of Hamden, Maine, and zooming in from Boston, Massachusetts this morning.
Hey, Ms. Green.
Good morning, everyone. I am a resident of South Portland, Maine, and I am zooming in from San Francisco, where it's very early.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for getting up. Mr. Hanslip.
Good morning, Joe Hanslip from Sanford, Maine.
All right, well, all four of us are here. So we've got a quorum, and obviously Director Champion is here as well. And you'll be hearing from some other members of the unit staff today. So with that, we'll go to the approval of minutes from the January 16, 2024 meeting. Had a couple edits to those. So I guess before we vote, that would make sense. I can say what they are and then we can approve. You ready? So on the first paragraph, it just says there were 1 patron complaints. So just changing the tense. Same with the third paragraph, the final sentence says there were 1 patron complaint. And, so it'd be what was, and then just the very end, the adjournment motion has Chief March's voting yes, but he was not there.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'd be Joe should be in there.
I'll change those.
All right. So with those edits, so I guess Joe or Sarah, if you want to move to approve the minutes with those slight edits.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right. Take a quick roll call vote. And Chief March, I assume you will abstain. So Ms. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip?
Aye.
All right. And I'm an aye as well. So those are approved. And with that, we'll go to the operations report with Inspector Supervisor Vicki Gardner.
Good morning. The operations report for January 2024. There were 6 shipments of machines and or associated equipment shipped to or from the licensed facilities. On-site inspectors completed 719 observations and 31 checklists. There were 16 self-exclusions. There were 7 minor violations that will continue to be monitored on the activity log. No patrons complaints and no formal complaints. Moving on to the police calls for service. Oxford PD answered 19 calls for service at the casino. They were things such as motor vehicle crashes, intoxicants, thefts out in the parking lot. Inside the casino, there were walkthroughs, trespass, drug investigations, missed dials, 911 hangups, and disorderly subjects. Hollywood Casino, Bangor PD responded for 10 calls for service, 3 in the parking garage for intoxicants, PD crashes, and 7 inside the casino for 911 hangups, subpoena service, information, and drugs. Moving on to February's operations report, there were 13 shipments of machines and or associated equipment shipped to or from a licensed facility. There were 703 observations, 28 checklists completed by the on-site inspectors. There were 6 self-exclusions, 4 minor violations, 3 patrons complaints, and 0 formal complaints. Oxford PD responded to 15 calls for service, 5 in the parking lot, 3 in the hotel, 7 inside the casino that included drugs, intoxicants, disorderly, welfare check, citizens assist, and 911 hangups. Hollywood had Bangor PD responded to 8 calls for service, 2 inside the hotel, 1 at the vicinity of the hotel because they use that as a catch-all, 500 Main Street, because of the intersection. And then they had 5 inside the casino that included criminal mischief, harassment, intoxicants. There's a suicidal threat, but I believe that one was just the one inside of the vicinity of the hotel and 911 hang-up calls. Any questions or concerns?
Thank you for putting the, I don't know if you did it or someone else, but the report in the Dropbox. It's useful to.
Okay.
The stats. I found it useful. And then I noticed we've got 0 formal complaints. In February, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right, good work, guys. Any questions from the board for Vicky? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go to the financial report with Auditor Alex Jutov.
Cover January and February 2024. Total casino tax revenue paid to the state of Maine decreased by 6.96% in January and increased by 2.68% in February 2024 for all facilities compared to the same months in 2023. Total revenue collected year to date is $10,407,271, a decrease of 1.98% compared to the same month in prior year. Oxford Casino reported total net win from slots machines of 7.90 in January and 8.18% in February 2024. Reported total win from table games was 28.85% in January and 28.43% in February 2024. Outlet Casino reported total net win from slots machines of 8.09% in January and 8.51% in February 2024. Reported total win from table games was 24.38% in January and 24.66% in February 2024. In the area of advanced deposit wagering, we observed a decrease of 28.2% of January and decrease of 6.3% in February 2024. Compared to the same months in 2023. 2024 year-to-date tax revenue collected from in-state and out-of-state races was $32,927, which is a decrease of 18% compared to the same months in prior year. That's it for the report.
Thank you. Any questions for Alex? All right, thank you. Moving right along, I know our executive director, Champion, has been busy with the legislature in session, so want to give us a report?
First and foremost, I know that the board members asked me to put my executive director report in the Dropbox as well, but with the legislative session and things happening by the minute, it was kind of hard to do it once we get out of the session, and then I have something prepared. I'll certainly put that in the Dropbox in advance for you. But good morning to everyone. As you all know, we're now in the 131st regular session the Maine legislature. There are currently 4 agency bills that passed out of the VLA committee and are moving through the chambers for final consideration by the governor. LD 2070 provides the Department of Public Safety Gambling Control Board or the director or staff of the board in collaboration with a casino operator or slot machine operator having the ability to disable slot machines when appropriate. It clarifies that an on-site computer system that is accessible by the Department of Public Safety through read-only access and is in operation as of January 1st, 2024 at a casino or slot machine facility licensed by the state is considered a facility-based monitoring system. It amends the provision of law regarding examination of slot machines and associated equipment to provide that the Gambling Control Board, in cooperation with the Department of Public Safety, must approve qualified independent laboratories for certification of slot machines and associated equipment from slot machine distributors and gambling service vendors seeking registration. The slot machine distributor or gambling service vendor seeking service certification of the slot machine or associated equipment must pay the board-approved independent laboratory the cost of the certification before it is completed. Gambling Control Board may adopt routine technical rules to establish the approval process to verify certifications, approve shipments, and inspect slot machines. Currently, certifications are provided by Gaming Laboratory International, GLI, and BMM, who have been completing the certifications, I believe, since 2004. Shipments have been completed through an application and record form since 2016 under Board Rules, Chapter 11, and we have recorded to date 1,106 shipments into or out of Maine. Inspectors at the casinos shall be trained for the process of accepting certifying software and securing slot machines at the time of delivery or during movement. It adds an emergency preamble, emergency clause, and an effective date of June 30th, 2024. Therefore, once signed into law by Governor Mills, I will need the board to approve. And I just had a discussion with the AAGs assigned to us that there's some misunderstanding under the emergency rule process. So basically what we'll do is we'll approve proposed rules and go through the regular rulemaking process. And of course, we're still in line to meet the deadline of the transition by June 30th. Rules have been generated in the same fashion as they were when I was the initial chief of slot operations in Florida in 2006 and are currently still in use in Florida, where 7 casinos have been operating since that time. The pre-qualified vendor GLI shall provide on-site transition of the machines to the casino's facility-based monitoring systems already in use, including training of inspectors, which includes verification of software from Cobatron Verify Plus software and equipment, which we already have at each casino as well. Once signed by the governor, I'll need to call the board for an emergency meeting to begin the rulemaking process, in which we should be able to do via Zoom. I will contact Chair Silver to schedule that. LD 2080 allows individuals to voluntarily exclude themselves from a slot machine facility, casino, advanced deposit wagering, a fantasy contest, or sports wagering collectively or separately, and also allows the Department of Public Safety Gambling Control Unit and licensees to work with a universal list and not a list for each separate area of regulation. The bill also includes provisions for the inclusion on the universal list of individuals who are involuntarily excluded from slot machine facilities, casinos, advanced deposit wagering, a fantasy contest, or sports wagering. The universal list and the administration thereof will be under the board, and I'm sure we'll have rulemaking on this measure as well, with all other areas referenced in law relating to the board's authority. The remaining 2 bills, agency bills, are under the unit's oversight in areas of charitable gaming and sports wagering. Other bills of interest that fall under the oversight of the director of the unit are LD 1777, 1992, and 2213. All 3 bills have reported out of committee as divided, meaning ought to pass with amendments, or ought not to pass. And that is my report.
Thank you. before I talk, any questions from the board? Okay. So one bill, 1777, which is this iGaming bill that would cut out the casinos. I've been pretty vocal in opposition to that. It was voted out of committee. We don't make policy, right? We enforce the rules. I think it's absolutely insane to cut out good partners, in my opinion, that showed $70 million to the state last year. I had a meeting, this is for the board to know, because I'm not even sure they know. I was in a stakeholder meeting with the bill's sponsor and a bunch of others, the tribal representatives, some representatives from the casinos, and my concerns were not cared about whatsoever. And it became clear that the folks operating these iGaming entities desperately did not want to be regulated by the board. And they don't want it to be done in public. They don't want to deal with the board. And that's pretty frustrating. So then when we have a bill about universal exclusion and somehow we're going to make the rules, but it's going to cover areas where now the legislature is cutting us out, makes no sense to me. And I obviously raised that by statute, the board oversees slots, table games, and electronic table games. So how would we not oversee those same games in iGaming? But the committee felt differently. So I'm not sure where that's going with the full legislature. But we are, in my opinion, moving towards a pretty weird spot to be cutting out the casinos. And then 1992 that's the historical horse racing. That's another bill that came out of committee that for the board, if you don't know historical horse racing, it looks, feels, acts, it's a slot machine. It runs on it's not running on a random number generator. It's running on a historical horse race. And that bill would allow the tribes to open up, essentially mini casinos throughout the state. I think this form of expansion is pretty bad, but not up to me. So at this point, I feel like I've done all I can do. And just sort of apologize to the casinos that the state seems to be attacking your businesses. It's absurd. So that doesn't mean that the Senate and the House will vote to approve it or the governor will approve it, but they did make it out of committee. So we have that kind of rolling downhill where very quickly we could have sports betting, right? ADW's opened up, iGaming, historical horse racing, high stakes Beano. I mean, we could be a rapid expansion in the next few months. So just bring that up because it could happen. It's not up to any of us sitting up here. So, contact your legislators. That's all I can say. Yeah. Any questions from the board? Go ahead, Ms. Green.
So not as much of a question, but a comment. I feel very uncomfortable hearing about all of these bills, particularly the ones that Director Champion was talking about, with having no knowledge that those even went there. And I guess for future sessions, is there a way that the board can get, copies of the bills that are in the VLA or the bills that you or Director Champion will be speaking to, so we're in the loop, that we're not hearing about them sort of when they're 2/3 of the way down?
For the agency bills, I would think you could do that.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, at some point prior to starting public hearings and starting the session, I could.
Yeah. I think that could be done for the,
I think it'd be very helpful. It'd allow us also to, if we had any feedback, to be able to provide that feedback before it starts going down that legislative process.
Yeah, and Sari, I'll tell you, because I kept an eye on 1777 and 1992, in which many of you may have seen the big story in the Press Herald. They were concept drafts until right before the committee, so we didn't even know what the text was.
Yeah.
There was nothing to share. And then when it came out, even at the work session, which I followed on Zoom, there's amendments on the fly it's impossible to figure out what the heck is going on. And the text is still not online for the public to go see. You know, I mean, you can get it, but if you just log on, search the bill, you wouldn't be able to see that. So it's been a really frustrating legislative process, apart from gaming bills, just all bills. But I think that next session, we should, you know, try to get that, at least for the agency bills.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand the frustration on the concept bills. Believe me, I have a couple of other issues with those as well. But at least anything that comes from the agency, that feels like we should at least have a heads up on it. So I would appreciate that.
Yeah, the other thing that came up, which I do think the VLA committee is open to looking at, which I think the board could have a say in next session, is looking at all the cascades of the revenue, particularly the casino cascade. That's been talked about a lot at the committee, and I think, you know, that was put in place years ago, and whether they want to change that or not, I mean, we've got so much overlap now with different, you know, different revenues going to the same entities. This iGaming bill has a completely different cascade, which is one of my issues with it. And so I think they want to look at that next session. So, you know, we may have some say in that. So be it. Any other questions, comments?
Yes, Chief
Yeah,
Marsh.
go ahead.
I presume that our testimony as a board, if any, would be neither for nor against by virtue of the fact of our appointed positions. But would it ever be appropriate for us to discuss and vote upon a position relative to pending or past legislation to the governor who appointed us regarding our position on new legislation? Would that be an appropriate use of board authority?
I think the most we could do is sort of a resolution that doesn't really have any power, but, you know, when I submit testimony or talk, I do it as myself, not on behalf of the board, as an individual. Obviously, they know who I am. But yes, I mean, we could. I think, honestly, the 1777 and 1992 somewhat caught me off guard because they've come up, at least iGaming has come up before and never advanced this far. So that was a little surprising. You know, and the notion that it would be tribal only, right? There's two entities that run sports wagering, and those would be the same two that would have iGaming. So we sure could. Same with the cascade, right? I mean, we could decide, you know, for example, we're going to send a letter to the VLA committee as a board and say, this is who we think it should go to or not go to. Or if the tribes get a monopoly on iGaming, they shouldn't get slot revenue from Oxford anymore. Just an example. So we can discuss that for sure.
Whatever our position would be for the integrity of the industry and in the interest of the people of Maine. So I would think that there would be some value in that if.
And the one thing I kept harping on was, if you're going to do this, you should adopt the same cascade, because if there's any drop in casino revenue, right, because there's only so many gaming dollars to go around in the state, you're going to impact the Department of Education, the Maine Community College System, the UMaine Scholarship System, right? All of those entities, even if it's a 2% drop, that's a lot of money, right? And again, it fell on deaf ears. So that was my concern, which is saying, I think as a board, we need to protect those entities, right? The state revenue for that. And, you know, it's not up to us, but that was one of the major points I had. You know, even some of the cities, Oxford and Bangor, right? They're stand to lose money out of the city budget from this. So, you know, it defies logic in a lot of ways, but again, we don't make policy. So So I think the casinos know where we stand. Yeah,
I'm sure the board can provide written testimony. They don't necessarily have to testify in person.
That's right. Yeah.
Jen,
We'll give you some feedback if you want to get into what actions are appropriate for the
Yeah.
board at some later time. Testimony might not be the right route, but there will.
just throw it out there.
Yep, we'll come up with a list of options and we'll speak to that.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, given where we're at, we've got some experience under our belt. I think next session, we should try to gear up, Anyways, any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Director Champion. So moving on, we've got a number of license applications for review. Pull those up. Oh yeah, this was the first one. Okay. All right, so the first one is for renew, this is initial, sorry. It's initial application. Initial application of Global Surveillance Associates. It's a gambling service vendor. I'll also say they use the 2021 form. Just FYI now. So for an initial, they really should have the new form. But regardless, this is the application of Global Surveillance Associates to be licensed as a gambling service vendor pursuant to 8 MRSA Section 1001 et sec. This is not an adjudicatory proceeding. Instead, we'll be receiving an opinion from board staff supported by evidence obtained during investigation. We'll also provide the applicant and the public opportunities to be heard. So first, anyone here from the applicant Global Surveillance Associates?
Yeah, Nick DeCerbo. I'm the president of Global Surveillance.
Hi, Nick. We will come back.
You asked me to turn on it.
Oh, are you able to turn on your camera?
Yeah, yep.
Hi, Nick.
How's it going?
All right, we will come back to you. Thanks for being here. But before we proceed, I assume one of the AAGs has some questions for us.
Sure, I'll go ahead. Does any member of the board have any reasons such as personal bias or conflict of interest that would prevent him or her from rendering an impartial decision in this matter? Seeing none, does any other person present at the hearing believe that there is any reason that would prevent any board member from rendering an impartial decision in this matter? If so, please stand or raise your virtual hand, state your name for the record, state your objection and the basis for that objection. Seeing none, if there are objections to any pre-hearing proceedings, that is the procedure of this case at this point, please stand or raise your virtual hand rather, state your name for the record and state the objection and the basis for that objection. Seeing and hearing none, you may proceed, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, each board member has a briefing paper based on materials the board staff is relying upon. Those will become part of the record. The complete investigation is made available for inspection by the board. Mass copies of the investigation are not available for public distribution as much of it is confidential. But if any person would like a copy of the public portion, please speak with Director Champion and he'll arrange to have those materials provided to you. This goes for all the licenses today. The board may be required to go into executive session to discuss confidential portions of the record. All other materials will, of course, be discussed in public. Any other evidence, such as conclusions of the board staff, information provided today by board staff, statements made by the applicant or public will be part of the record. So we'll go back to you, Nick. If you have anything you want to present or say, I think it may be useful also for the board to hear what it is that Global Surveillance provides and will be doing in Maine.
Sure. We did provide a PDF, like a brief a brief overview of the company. We provided it pretty late to Mallory last night, so I don't know if she has that. I mean, I'm happy to share that if you want, or I can just kind of go over it, over this, if whatever's easier for you guys.
Yeah.
Should be able to share it.
I think you should be able to share your screen if you want to do that.
Did you receive it?
Is that working? Or no? No.
Nothing yet. No. See a permission to do so.
It says share. I'm hitting share, but it doesn't seem to want to go here.
Should give you the option to choose which screen.
Yeah, I'm on. Yeah, I've got that.
All right, well, anyways, why don't you just, you can just go over some of the highlights for us and we'll take a look at it when it gets sent to us.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So basically at our core, Global Surveillance is a gaming focused surveillance and security integrator. We've been in business since 1987. We mainly focus on casinos. We do other things outside of casinos, but by and far, I'd say 85 to 90% of our business is casino related. So we do everything from putting cameras, pull cable, install the monitor room, put in UPSs, whatever we have to do from soup to nuts to basically get a casino up and running, to service and support after the fact, day one, right? They take over, but maybe they don't have the right technicians and they need some help in that regard, or they just have small projects that they want to bring somebody in for. They give us a ring. So we've, like I said, we've been around since 87. I contribute that success. We're very people centric. No matter what our size of our customer, we look at them as partners, and no matter what position our employees are in, we look at them as teammates, and we really focus on making sure that everybody throughout the entire group is getting the attention they need. You know, we try to provide cutting edge technology with a caveat that it has been vetted for reliability in these highly regulated environments. So I say cutting edge, but we don't want to be right on the edge where there's potential issues that it hasn't been vetted properly. But we do a pretty good vetting process. We have a lab here in our headquarters in Las Vegas where we try to test everything out before putting it out into the wild to go into casino facilities like the ones in Maine. And that's, you know, from a super high level, what we do. As far as me being the key, I forget what you guys call us here, the key executive. I've been at Global since '98. I started out as a delivery guy and making cable bundles, worked my way up to technician and project manager, director of operations, and ultimately I bought the company in 2017. It probably became official in 2018, very beginning of 2018. And I've been the sole owner since then. So been here for a long time. It's all I know. And so we'd love to be able to support Maine, in particular, the Hollywood Casino in Bangor there. It would be our pleasure to serve them.
Okay, and it looks like you've got licenses in quite a few other jurisdictions.
We do. I think it's like 20 states. Let me move the share screen thing here. Yeah, we're licensed in 20 states, 11 tribes across the US. We have one license in a province in Canada right now. In Ontario, we're in the application process. In BC, it seems to be a very, very long process. And then it's constantly evolving, right? Much like Maine, right? Like if we need to get one because we've got a customer potentially there, we go out and get it. And then on top of that, we've got obviously our technicians. In certain states, like here in Nevada, our techs don't have to have any special license. But then if we go to other states like Maine, we might need to have specific licenses, not only for the business and the key employees, but even down to your technicians. And we go ahead and we get all those and make sure that we're in compliance in that regard as well.
Okay. Any board member have a question for the applicant? Go ahead, Ms. Green.
Nick, congratulations on your success story. It's a great story to hear.
Thanks.
Just curious, because you talked about a whole range of activities. Is there something specific that you're looking to provide for Hollywood?
Yeah, so, and we have a representative from the company. It's called Skyla Analytics. So they do a ton of different analytics. And I've also got Brian Ward, our regional enterprise solution manager here. We wanted to do a quick presentation on that. So they do stuff from facial rec to fire detection to weapons detection. They do all sorts of these smart analytics. And so that was one of the things we presented to Hollywood.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Detective Armstrong? No,
I got
you?
the initials.
All right. We're gonna move to Director Champion at this point.
All right. Mr. Nicholas DeSerbo, President, Global Surveillance Associates Incorporated, applied for initial gambling service vendor license on September 14th, 2023. They disclosed in their application was evaluated by whether the applicant satisfies the criteria outlined in Title 8, Chapter 31, the extent to which, if any, the applicant would be subject to the control or influence of its activities by any person having a financial interest pertaining to the applicant, including a mortgage or other lien against property of the applicant, or who, in the opinion of the board, might otherwise influence its activities. In such case, the director shall consider the character, honesty, and integrity of whoever has the ability to control or influence the activities of the applicant, the degree to which the applicant has demonstrated its ability to finance the proposed gambling service vendor operations, as well as the source of such financing, the degree to which the application has supplied accurate and complete information pursuant to the requirements of this rule, the extent to which the applicant has cooperated with the board and the department in connection with the background investigation, whether the person or any of its officers, directors, partners, owners, executives, or gambling service vendor employees are known to associate with persons of nefarious backgrounds or disreputable character. With respect to any past conduct which may adversely reflect upon the applicant, the nature of the conduct, the time that has passed since the conduct, the frequency of the conduct, and any extenuating circumstances that affect or reduce the impact of the conduct or otherwise reflect upon the applicant's fitness for the license, and any other information before the director, including substantially similar background investigations performed by other agencies or jurisdictions that relate to the applicant's competency, financial capability, honesty, integrity, reputation, habits, or associations. Financial statements for 2021 and 22 were submitted. Those financial documents and other documents as required were supplied to our financial review contractor, Whipfly. Whipfly reported that the company, Global Service Associates, Inc., appears to have sufficient financial assets to meet any financial obligations imposed by the board. Additionally, the key executives for Global Service Associates, Inc. were found to have demonstrated financial responsibility as defined by regulations governing the board. Global Service Associates and its principals continue to meet the qualifications of Title 8, Section 1016, numbers 1A, 2, and Section 1019. Global Surveillance Associates, Inc. also meets the requirements of Board Rule Chapter 2, Section 5, Parent 7. Global Surveillance Associates, Inc. shall be licensed as required under Title 8, Section 1014, Parent 2, which states that the board may issue a gambling service vendor license to an applicant meets the qualifications as set out in Sections 1016 and 1019. Therefore, after verification of the documents submitted and interviews or inquiries by Detective Armstrong and the financial review by Whipfly is the opinion of the department, the Global Surveillance Associates, Inc. is suitable to be licensed as a gambling service vendor in the state of Maine.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Champion from the board? All right. And Nick, you said, did you have somebody who wanted to present something or?
Yeah, we were asked to present the Skyla analytics company. So I got our guy Brian Ward on the line here. He could kind of go over a brief description of it for the board. That way,
sure,
being blindsided after the fact.
Sure. Go ahead, Brian. Unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning, board, and thank you for allowing us to participate in March's meeting. As Nick stated, we are looking to partner with Hollywood Casino at Bangor to potentially supply a proof of concept video analytics solution for them using Skyla AI. In this instance, we would use them for facial recognition entry into the facility. They have a specific need on a requirement for folks coming through the turnstiles onto the gaming floor, and we wanted to provide that proof of concept to try it in the gaming environment to see if it meets a need that they have at the property. We do have our partner Skyla on the call. If the board has any deep technical questions, I don't want to speak for them. They are our expert partner in video analytics. And we currently work with Penn Entertainment, and we hold the 5-year service and support agreement for their surveillance system, Synectics. And this video analytics product, Skyla, integrates very well with Synectics, the video management system at the property. And I open up any questions now that the board may have on the video analytics or the proof of concept trial for Hollywood Bangor.
Chief March, go ahead.
Thank you for that description. You mentioned that Hollywood Slots has a need. I'm curious, what's the identified need where facial recognition would benefit the operation? Maybe someone from Hollywood could speak to that.
Go ahead,
Sure.
Austin.
So obviously we've been, oh.
I want to get you on camera.
So Skyla offers a whole suite of interesting capabilities that we wanted to trial. Anywhere from weapons detection to if someone falls over, can detect an injury potentially. But we began exploring this as an option as we discussed self-exclusions and the board's desire, as we've discussed, to keep them off the floor. And so this system has the potential to assist us in that. Again, it's trial. This is not something we've used in any other property, although this technology is pretty prevalent in a lot of other industries. It has the ability to assist in preventing self-exclusions, minors, and any other person that we'd like to keep off the gaming floor from getting on it. So part of this trial would be testing the efficacy and exactly how some of these features work, but that's why we originally began to discuss this potential of this technology.
Is there, whenever you're gonna, sorry, Chief March, go ahead.
I do understand and appreciate the value of this technology. During this proof of concept period, we offer any signage to the public that facial recognition is in play or being utilized during this time?
Yes, we've been having pretty extensive conversations with our privacy team about the need to update our privacy policy, the need to review any pertinent regulations or laws, and update on property signage. So that's still in the works. This is, one of many steps before we would to put this in place. But again, we'd be happy to discuss any concerns or questions the board or anyone else might have about this.
Chair Silver, I'm not sure what our authority is around gambling control, the control part of advancing technologies and so forth. I, for one, am very interested in how this unfolds, but I don't know exactly what our authority or our responsibility is around weighing in on the use of rapidly advancing technologies, particularly with respect to privacy. But thank you very much for those explanations. Very helpful, and good luck.
Yeah, and I guess I just asked, when it does start, you move to that trial phase, report back how it's going. I think we'd be interested to know if it's useful and, something we may need to look at.
Sure, we'd be happy to. And again, just to reinforce why we started looking at this is, the active shooter incident in Maine obviously was a frightening incident, and the idea that we could have potentially put that face in this system and prevented it from getting on our casino is something that's continues to be very interesting to us. So be happy to report back.
Great. All right. Any other public comment on this application? Okay. Hearing none and seeing none. Any other board comments, questions? Okay.
Chair, I do want to raise one thing, and I don't think it will complicate the application and whether the board wishes to approve it. But I do want to raise, if it hasn't been raised before, that there is a statute that indicates it may complicate the use of facial recognition software.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to I think the lawyers and what they're going to use, and then the enforcement of how that's used. But in terms of the license, because in theory, I think the applicant, they could just provide straight up security cameras, right? I mean,
I agree.
yeah. that is a whole area I do not know, tend to know the law in.
We'll put a pin on it for now and just kind of know.
Yeah, I suspect there's even more beyond that statute that
Oh, yeah.
has to be worked out before this is employed. So, yeah, as Austin said, is a first step. And I know Penn has a has a good compliance, privacy, legal team, so they'll figure this out. So with that, is there a motion on the application of Global Surveillance Associates for licensure as a gambling services vendor?
So moved, Green.
Seconded Hanslip.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. Well, let's take a vote then. So if you're voting yes, then it is to approve the initial license for Global Surveillance Associates as a gambling services vendor. We'll start with you, Ms. Green.
Aye.
Chief March,
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. So the result is 4-0. The motion carries. Having met all the requirements of licensing pursuant to Title 8, Chapter 31, Global Surveillance Associates will be licensed as a gambling services vendor in the state of Maine. And we thank you for being here today and for your desire to do business in Maine. All
Thank you,
right.
members.
Thank you.
So, moving right along. So we have the casino operator renewal license of HC Bangor LLC, Hollywood Casino. Obviously, there's a number of you here. Is one person presenting or saying anything? You don't have to.
I don't really want to make it long, just stating that November will be our 19th year of operating in the state of Maine, something we're very proud of. We're already beginning to talk about the 20th year celebrations, and we understand that the privilege to operate in the state it's a privilege, not a right. And again, we appreciate the partnership with the board and the unit and everyone that's helped us be so successful over these 19 years. So thank you.
All right. And before we proceed, I believe AAG Mantis has some questions for us again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Does any member of the board have any reason such as personal bias or conflict of interest that would prevent him or her from rendering an impartial decision in this matter? Seeing and hearing none? Does any other person present at the hearing believe that there's any reason that would prevent any board member from rendering an impartial decision in this matter? If so, please stand or raise your virtual hand and state your objection in your name. Seeing and hearing none. If there are objections to any pre-hearing proceedings, that is the procedure of this case up to this point, please stand, state your name for the record, or raise your virtual hand and state your name for the record and state the objection and the basis for that objection. Seeing and hearing none, Chair, you may proceed.
Okay. Again, we have a lot of materials that have been provided to the board from the staff. The public, the non-confidential portions will become part of the public record. If any person would like a copy of the public portion, please speak to Director Champion. Any other evidence such as conclusions of board staff, information provided today by board staff, statements made, or documents provided by the applicant and public comment will also become part of the record. So we heard from Austin. I'll turn back if we have any questions for him. Is this Detective Armstrong?
Yes.
All right, we'll turn over to Detective Donnie Armstrong to discuss the background investigation on this.
He's having issues.
Oh. Then we won't. He's on there.
Yeah, he was on there, but he tried to join again.
No, you're able to reach him, or you want to take over?
Yeah. Not on.
On unmuting.
All right. Pursuant to Title 8, Section 1005, subsection 2 of the Maine Revised Statutes, the Department of Public Safety is responsible for investigating the qualifications of each applicant before a license or registration is issued and reporting to the board the results of any such investigation. HC Bangor LLC, Kyle Krager, is that right? Fantastic. Director of Finance applied for renewal of the company's casino operator license on September 11th, 2023. The company disclosed, and it was verified, that since the company's last application for a board license, there have been no changes to the company's address. There have been changes to the key executives of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been changes to the ownership structure of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been adverse actions taken against the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company or by any other regulatory agencies, and there are no charges pending against the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company in any state or federal court. The company submitted its federal and state tax returns for the preceding year 2022 and copies of its internally prepared financial statements for the current year 2023 as of the close of the most recent fiscal quarter prior to application. Those financial documents and other documents as required were supplied to our financial review contractor, Whitfly. Whitfly reported that the company HC Bangor LLC appears to have sufficient financial assets to meet any financial obligations imposed by the board. Additionally, the key executives of HC Bangor LLC were found to have demonstrated financial responsibility as defined by the rules governing the board. The department has investigated the qualifications of HC Bangor LLC and has determined that it meets the board's requirements for renewal of its casino operator license. Specifically, HC Bangor LLC and its principals continue to meet the qualifications for licensure set out in Title 8, Sections 10, 16, and 19, and meets the requirements of Board Rules, Chapter 2, Section 2. Therefore, after verification of the documents submitted, interviews and inquiries by Detective Armstrong, the financial review by Whitfly, and the final review by myself, is the opinion of the department that HC Bangor LLC is suitable to be continually licensed as a casino operator in the state of Maine.
Any questions from the board for Director Champion? Okay. And I should have asked, any questions of the applicant? All right, seeing none. Any public comment? Okay. All right, seeing none, hearing none. Is there a motion on the application of HC Bangor LLC for licensure or renewal licensure as a casino operator?
So moved, March.
Seconded, hand slip.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, we'll go to a roll call vote. Again, if you're voting in the affirmative, it is to approve the license renewal for HC Bangor as casino operator. Start with you, Ms. Green.
Aye.
Chief March.
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, so that's 4-0. Having met all the requirements of licensing pursuant to Title 8, Chapter 31, HC Bangor LLC will have its casino operator license renewed. Yeah, we'll look forward to that 20th anniversary celebration. All right, moving along. Our third one of the day. Let me pull this up. Okay. All right, this is the application of Glory Global Solutions, Inc. To be licensed or for renewal licensure as a gambling services vendor pursuant to 8 MRSA Section 1001 at SEC. Again, it's not an adjudicatory proceeding. Instead, we'll be receiving an opinion from board staff supported by evidence obtained during investigation, provide the applicant and the public an opportunity to participate. Is there anyone here from Glory Global? Okay. Seeing no representative, we'll continue. Turn it back over to Assistant Attorney General Mantis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does any member of the board have any reason such as personal bias or conflict of interest that would prevent him or her from rendering an impartial decision in this matter? Seeing and hearing none. Does any other person present at the hearing believe that there is any reason that would prevent any board member from rendering an impartial decision in this matter? If so, please stand or raise your hand, state your name and state your objection and the basis for that objection. Seeing and hearing none, if there are objections to any pre-hearing proceedings, that is the procedure of this case up to this point, please stand or raise your hand, state your name for the record, and state the objection and the basis for that objection. Seeing and hearing none, you may proceed, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Again, if anyone wants copies of the public portions of these materials, please reach out to Director Champion and we'll get those to you. I believe the change here was the executives on this application, but you want to take it, Director Champion or Detective Armstrong is back?
I believe, am I back or?
You're back. You're
Okay,
back.
I'll take this one then.
Okay.
Pursuant to Title 8, Section 1005, subsection 2 of the Maine Revised Statutes, Department of Public Safety is responsible for investigating the qualifications of each applicant before a license or registration is issued and reporting to the board the results of any such investigation. Glory Global Solutions, Inc., Joseph Wilcox, Regulatory Compliance Manager, applied for renewal of the company's gambling service vendor license on October 16th, 2023. The company disclosed and was verified that since the company's last application for a board license, there have been no changes to the company's address. There have been changes to the key executives of the company and any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been no changes to the ownership structure of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been no adverse actions taken against the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company by any other regulatory agencies. And there are no charges pending against the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company in any state or federal court. The company submitted its federal and state tax returns for 2022 and audited statements for 2022 and 2023. Those financial documents and other documents as required were supplied to our financial review contractor, Whipfly. Whipfly reported that the company, Glory Global Solutions, Inc., appears to have sufficient financial assets to meet any financial obligations imposed by the board. Additionally, the key executives for Glory Global Solutions, Inc. were found to have demonstrated financial responsibility as defined by the rules governing the board. The department has investigated the qualifications of Glory Global Solutions, Inc. and has determined that it meets the board's requirements for renewal of its gambling services vendor license. Specifically, Glory Global Solutions, Inc. and its principals continue to meet the qualifications for a license set out in Title 8, Sections 1016 and 1019, and meets the requirements of Board Rules, Chapter 2, Section 5. Therefore, after my verification of the documents submitted, interviews or inquiries, the financial review of Whipfly, and the final review by Director Champion, it is in the opinion of the department that Glory Global Solutions, Inc. is suitable to be continually licensed as a gambling services vendor in the state of Maine.
All right, thank you. Any board questions for Detective Armstrong? All right, hearing none. Any public comment on this application? Okay. Is there a motion on the application of Glory Global for renewal licensure as a gambling services vendor?
So moved.
We'll give that one. We'll give that one to Joe. Sarah, you can second it.
That's fine.
All right. Any discussion needed? Okay, let's take a roll call vote. Again, voting in the affirmative is to approve the license renewal for Glory Global as a gambling services vendor. We'll start with you, Ms. Green.
Aye.
Chief March.
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. It's 4-0. The motion carries. Having met all the requirements of licensing pursuant to Title 8, Chapter 31 Glory Global will be licensed as a gambling services vendor in the state of Maine. And we obviously thank them for their continued desire to do business in Maine. All right, the last license today is another renewal. Let me pull that up. Okay. This is the application of Patriot Gaming and Electronics, Inc. For the renewal of their license as a gambling services vendor pursuant to 8 MRSA Section 1001 et sec. Is there anyone here from the applicant? Okay. Seeing none, we'll continue and turn it back for the last time. Attorney General Mantis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does any member of the board have any reason such as personal bias or conflict of interest or that would prevent him or her from rendering an impartial decision in this matter? Seeing and hearing none. Does any other person present at the hearing believe that there is any reason that would prevent any board member from rendering an impartial decision in this matter? If so, please stand or raise your hand, state your name and state the objection and the basis for that objection. Seeing and hearing none, if there are objections to any pre-hearing proceedings, that is the procedure of this case up to this point, please stand or raise your hand, state your name, the objection and the basis for that objection. Seeing and hearing none, Mr. Chair, you may proceed.
Okay, and again, a reminder, if anyone wants the public portion of these materials that we're relying on, please reach out to Director Champion. No one's here from the applicant, so we'll go back to you, Detective Armstrong.
Pursuant to Title 8, Section 1005, subsection 2 of the Maine Revised Statutes, the Department of Public Safety is responsible for investigating the qualifications of each applicant before a license or registration is issued and reporting to the board the results of any such investigation. Patriot Gaming and Electronics, Inc. Mark Komorowski, president, applied for a renewal of the company's gambling services vendor license on October 16th, 2023. The company disclosed and was verified that since the company's last application for a board license, there have been no changes to the company's address. There have been no changes to the key executives of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been no changes to the ownership structure of the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company. There have been adverse actions taken against the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company by any other regulatory agencies. And there are no charges pending against the company or any parent or intermediate affiliates of the company in any state or federal court. The company submitted its federal and state tax returns for 2022 and statements for 2022 and 2023. Those financial documents and other documents as required were supplied to our financial review contractor, Whipfly. Whipfly reported that the company Patriot Gaming and Electronics, Inc. appears to have sufficient financial assets to meet any financial obligations imposed by the board. Additionally, the key executives for Patriot Gaming and Electronics, Inc. were found to have demonstrated financial responsibility as defined by the rules governing the board. The department has investigated the qualifications of Patriot Gaming and Electronics, Inc., and has determined that it meets the board's requirements for renewal for its gambling services vendor license. Specifically, Patriot Gaming and Electronics, Inc. and its principals continue to meet the qualifications for a license set out in Title 8, Sections 1016 and 1019, and meets the requirements of Board Rules, Chapter 2, Section 5. Therefore, after my verifications of the documents submitted, interviews or inquiries, the financial review by Whipfly, and the final review by Director Champion, it is in the opinion of the department that Patriot Gaming and Electronics, Inc. is suitable to be continually licensed as a gambling services vendor in the state of Maine.
Thank you. Any board questions for Detective Armstrong? All right, seeing none. Any public comment on this application? All right, hearing and seeing none. Is there a motion on the application of Patriot Gaming and Electronics, Inc. For licensure as a gambling services vendor?
So moved, March.
Seconded, Green.
Okay, there we go. Any discussion needed? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Again, voting in the affirmative is to approve Patriot Gaming and Electronics renewal as their renewal of their gambling services vendor license. Sorry. Start with you, Ms. Green.
Aye.
Chief March.
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip.
Aye.
Okay, having met all the requirements of licensing pursuant to Title 8, Chapter 31. Oh, yeah. She reminded me to vote. I'm an aye as well. 4-0. It would have passed anyway,
Yes.
even if I didn't. Patriot Gaming and Electronics will be licensed as a gambling services vendor in the state of Maine, and we thank them for their continued desire to do business here. So moving along, unfinished business.
If I could just raise an agenda issue, I think this agenda item 7A, ADW rules, maybe is slightly confusing because it seems to indicate that we're holding a public hearing. Milt, if you could just confirm that's not the intent, correct? It's just to review the comments from the public hearing?
Correct.
Okay, so I would recommend that the board actually vote to amend the agenda and that an amended agenda be posted. That says ADW rules - review of public hearing comments and written comments - basis statement, and then we can discuss. I think that just want to clarify that we are not holding a public hearing today.
Green, so moved.
I'll second that. All right, so we'll take a roll call vote to amend the agenda as just stated. We'll start with you, Ms. Green.
Aye.
Chief March.
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip.
Aye.
And I as well. Thank you. See how we'd go off the rails if we didn't have the Assistant Attorney Generals here. All right.
So just for clarification.
Yeah.
After ADW rules, you want a review of in front of public hearing and written comments / basis statement.
I've got the text that I read, Mel. I'll give it to you. So it should be review of public hearing comments and written comments - basis statement.
Okay.
And so with these rules, we did have the initial publication, there were written comments, we had a public hearing on January 16th. And then we had a second publication of the text with written comments that were due last month. And so now we're back together and we've got a few items that are still outstanding. Is that an accurate summary?
Yes.
Okay, so for the board, in the PDF ADW basis statement, you'll see what some of the outstanding issues are that are highlighted. I think we could just take those in order, or Milt, did you have a different?
No, yeah, that'd be perfect. Some of the comments that weren't highlighted may want to have some clarification to see if that wording is okay. But yeah, it's just the highlighted ones that we really got comments on, so.
Yeah, and there were, I assume, so there's comments I can see from Twin Spires and ExpressBet. I assume that's it that we got?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure you didn't just pull those two out. Okay. And we had commenters at the public hearing that we heard from in January as well. So the first issue involves this SOC 2 Type 2. The first one you'll see is the definition, and then it comes up again in terms of the actual audit requirement, which is on pages 6 to 8. So sort of two things: one, the definition, and then the actual audit, which is in section 5. So let me pull this up. Twin Spires had a comment, a proposal of, that a independent third party conduct a security assessment each year rather than the SOC 2 Type 2 audit. ExpressBet had a comment about utilizing other states their auditing requirements. So I don't know if the board has thoughts. I kind of like the idea of an annual assessment from a third party versus just, using what another state does. But go ahead, Ms. Green.
So I think I've made my position clear multiple times on this. I actually am a little disappointed. I had no one from the state, from the Gambling Control Office or the AAG office reach out to me. We had talked about discussing a clarification of what we meant by the SOC report, which version, which trust service principles. None of that happened. So I just want to be clear on that. I agree that Chair Silver, that I think an independent security assessment is appropriate. I still have very strong reservations about how the SOC requirement is defined.
And Ms. Green, so in one of the proposed texts, it said that the security testing should include a minimum of vulnerability assessment and a penetration test. Is that, I don't know, that language work?
I think that language works.
Is there anything else we should be including?
I think I would include a risk assessment in that. So a vulnerability assessment, a penetration test, and a risk assessment.
If I may, I asked Charles Rote from Maine IT to attend the meeting today to answer any questions and maybe give Maine IT's position. Charles was one that also, I think, one of 3 people that actually vetted our sports wagering rules. And of course, we added the SOC 2 type 2 requirement to our fantasy rules as well. So I asked him if he could attend. He's here with us this morning, and he could give Maine IT's position on this, I guess.
So before he does that, since he hasn't done other meetings, let me just express so he understands my concern. I have no issue with the SOC 2 report. I think they're fine. My concern was that we were requiring that the organizations use all 5 trust principles. That's extremely unusual. That's very expensive and onerous on an organization. And so I guess I would be interested in hearing his rationale for why we would require all 5 trust service principles to be included as part of a SOC 2 and preferably a type 2 report.
Sure. Sari, what time are you leaving us?
I'm staying on. I'll stay on.
All right. Okay.
Thank you for having Ms.
Yeah, I know, Chief March. That's why I was asking.
Mr. Silver, members of the Gambling Control Board, thank you for having me. I think it's outstanding that we're actually just having this conversation with regards to security. I've been asked here as a security expert to discuss the merits of the SOC 2 Type 2 and the trust principles. I'm the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer for the state of Maine. I write policy. One that's germane to this discussion is our acquisition policy. The state of Maine and the executive branch for cloud service providers use a number of security assessments, one of which is the SOC 2. And I'm willing to deep dive into the trust principles and the logic behind those.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue that's been raised by some of the providers is just that it would be extremely onerous and to hit all of the trust principles, and that no other state does it for, at least for ADW. I don't know about sports wagering, but.
Yep, so the trust principles are usually determined based on the need of the organization. So security is always included. So out of the 5 trust principles, if you have a SOC 2 Type 2, and the Type 2 means it's continuous monitoring. So you as a state are looking at this cloud service provider on a continual basis. So you're maintaining those security assurances. The next 3 are availability, integrity, confidentiality. If you think of those 3 right there are referred to as the CIA triad in information security parlance. They're typically needed across the board for a comprehensive review of security. So questions you ask yourself if you're interested in confidentiality, does the data that these organizations have worth protecting? Do you want to understand at a deeper level that you're protecting the confidentiality of the information that they have? With integrity, you want to make sure you're asking for an increased look by this 3PAO auditor that the data that this individual is charged with carrying isn't manipulated in some way. So I'm not an expert in gambling, but if somebody were able to go in and manipulate either the data or the processes that these organizations do, you would, if you have a concern there from a risk perspective, then I would suggest you probably want the integrity trust principle. Availability, initially, when I thought about it, I didn't think availability might be applicable in this instance. However, when you consider the fact that these organizations hold money of Maine citizens, or at least an account with a balance, if that system were to go down and that individual wanted their money or needed to complete a transaction of some sort, how long does the state as an organization find it acceptable that that system isn't up? So that's why you would include those three: CIA. Privacy, when we're dealing with cloud service providers, is typically taken on, the onus of that is typically taken on by the state. But the reason that you would probably want privacy included as a trust principle in this instance is if an individual wants their data absconded from the record or protected from being sold, all those privacy mechanisms, if you want to know that that organization is doing that on your behalf in an appropriate fashion, then you want privacy looked at as well. And that's why you end up with including all 5 trust principles for these cloud service providers.
So would you agree that it really depends on, and I think you said this at the beginning, opposed to mandating all 5, would you agree that it really depends upon the services that in each of the individual vendors are providing to determine which of the trust service principles?
Yeah, so typically that we do it on a case-by-case basis, but if the onus is off, so it's dependent upon what are your responsibilities in the arrangement as opposed to the organization in which of those are shared. Typically, responsibilities that are shared or owned by the vendor almost exclusively, that's why I would ask that they include that trust principle. If you as the customer are taking on that responsibilities, and in this case, I'd assume it'd be the state, or you're trying to make sure that privacy, that's usually the most contentious. But since based on what I'm looking at, it seems that the vendor is taking on the onus of all the privacy rules associated with PII, the individuals in their data sets.
I don't know who can answer this, but is it true that the initial or the current ADW licensee did not have to do this type of audit?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Ms. Green, any other questions, comments?
Yeah, well, I still feel the same way. I look at a lot of these. I work with a lot of vendors. I very rarely, if ever, see all 5 trust service principles that are included in a SOC report or an SSAE 18 report. It really is very much it's very specific to what the vendor is doing and what service they're providing, whether we need processing integrity, whether we need availability, security, privacy, et cetera. And if we are going to include this, I still think it shouldn't be a blanket. You have to do all 5. I think there needs to be discretion based on what the vendor is particularly doing. I also have a concern that we're doing this just in ADW and nowhere else. And we have service providers that are doing things that are much more significant than the ADW providers are going to be doing, both in volume and in dollars, and we don't have this requirement for them. So it just seems it's not equal in what we're asking our vendors to do.
All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So what I propose, and all of you can disagree, but I would strike from section 1, the definitions, I would just strike SOC 2 type 2. And then for the actual audit, which is section 5, I would just remove that and replace it with the requirement, and I can read the language, but the requirement that a security assessment be performed by an independent third-party security consulting firm each year. Such assessment shall test the effectiveness of the ADW operator and application security controls which are in place in order to determine the overall threat of potential compromise to the ADW operator's network and applications. Such testing shall include at a minimum, we had 3, a vulnerability assessment, penetration test, and a risk assessment of relevant applications and networks, and a summary identifying any deficiencies should be submitted to the board no later than 30 days after the assessment is conducted, and shall include the ADW operator's plans to remediate any identified deficiencies. And that's largely the language from one of the comments we got from Twin Spires. So open it up to the board. How you feel about that?
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with still requiring a SOC report as long as we are not requiring all 5, that we are requiring the trust service principles as appropriate, and then we get the report, and if we don't think it's conclusive, we can say that. So maybe you want to amend have that language as is, and or an SSAE 18 SOC 2 report, but not necessarily specify all the trust service principles. I think the really key is that they are doing security testing and that we are getting the results.
Yeah.
But the problem that, we're inconsistent across the various vendors.
Yeah. Given that the ADW operator currently didn't have to do that, and we're trending towards very little amounts of money being wagered on this. I think we go this route.
Steve could also even just leave it as they have to provide a security assessment. And if we don't feel that the security assessment that they provided is comprehensive enough, we can put it back to them, but maybe not even as specific as to what the security assessment is.
Generally speaking, in rulemaking, you do want to set out and delineate clear standards for the licensees to follow, so the regulated community knows what standard they have to meet, rather than saying, we'll look at it later. So the rulemaking expectation is that we do here in this process that the board does set clear standards that they expect licensees to meet.
Okay, that's fair. Steve, I would then go with those 3 or a SOC 2 report with the trust service principles at their discretion, and give them the option of what they want to, does that work?
I think that makes sense. Can you say what that was again? It was.
Yeah, we can write it down.
You had it was SOC something.
Oh, it's a SSAE 18 SOC 2 type 2 report with the trust principles at their discretion. So, or maybe it's even at I don't know whose discretion it's at. I just still don't think we need to include all 5.
Yeah. You're responding to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just language that we've used in policy in the past to make those type of accommodations is we've used language as appropriate or as determined by the vendor and in our case, state entity. So that's the way that we normally go about it. The one thing I will say with regards to a SOC 2 type 2, by relying on a particular security assessment as opposed to a general security assessment, having done this with numerous vendors, oftentimes you have consistency in what you're receiving. So I don't know who would be reviewing the results of these. You're saying you want a you want a risk assessment, a pen test, et cetera. It's usually we rely on the SOC 2 or FedRAMP certifications or state ramp certifications based on the consistency of the results that we tend to see and our capacity to review those in an appropriate fashion. I would suggest to the board that if you're relying on if you leave it too wide open, the vendor could send you a pile of documents with regards to, and then you have to make your assessment based on a fairly technical large report. And that's the problems that we've run into in the past.
And I think that's a very fair statement. And I think that's, I agree with that. Again, I'm okay with the SOC 2 reports if we can go back to the language that you just proposed, which is, actually, I don't remember your exact words, but really leaving which principles to the discretion of the vendor and the state. I'm not sure, I can't recall how you just said it, but you said it very eloquently. So perhaps you can repeat that.
Yeah, so as determined or as agreed upon by the vendor and whoever the other parties. You don't want to leave it necessarily up to the sole discretion of the vendor. Oftentimes they'll just say, well, then I'll just do security and not the others. I don't know if there's what would be the other appropriate entity for consensus in this regard. Would it be the board?
I think we have to say what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's not really a way to do that.
Sure, you could create a application and proposal process that then gets reviewed by the board, but that will create a huge amount of work, I think, for everyone involved. And it may just be easier to state outright what standards are appropriate.
Can someone speak to exactly what the ADW vendor has in terms of customer information? I know they have the money, but what do they actually have in terms of legally protected information?
Probably everything on your ID.
The accounts, every time you generate an account, you have to give all the pertinent information, so all that's vulnerable.
So
I think she's asking, what is the pertinent information?
What is the what?
What is the information that they're holding there for that account?
Name, birth date, address.
Yeah, everything that would verify identity. Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I couldn't hear it. Got name, birthday.
Name, address, birth date, social security number, all the above. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it'd be, if you're using a direct deposit, it'd be your banking
Yeah.
account, credit card info.
It's probably no different than opening up an Amazon account or PayPal or something like that. You have to.
A little more,
use,
you have to do age verification.
Yeah.
Okay. So. And how much money are we talking about? On a per person basis, basically? Just.
I don't know that we know that per person.
All right, I just was, but we're not talking about large amounts of dollars here, right?
Well, looking at the last month, you're looking at $17,000. I mean, year to date, there's been $33,000 wagered.
So if I, just as an aside, if I was a vendor, I wouldn't come to Maine. I wouldn't go do a $50,000 worth of reports for this amount of money. But I guess if we had to do an SSA 18, I would probably just go with confidentiality, processing integrity, maybe availability. And well, I guess we want security. I don't know. I don't know where to go with this. I guess, do we have to make this decision today, or can someone from the state really reach out to me and we can talk about this offline, or do we have to do this today?
Generally speaking, we're now in the APA rulemaking process. The discussion should probably be conducted in public. So if there are additional representatives you'd like to talk to or additional questions you'd like to discuss, you could share your list of questions and that could be discussed at a public meeting. But generally speaking, yes, we should be discussing this in public and hashing out the either the language that the board wants to adopt, or hashing out what additional information is needed.
Or we go with my proposal, and any operator that a customer can't get their money out of, it's gonna trend on Twitter pretty quickly, and they're not gonna be in business long. So, when you're looking at, Penn, Twin Spires, ExpressBet, like, I don't know. These are major operators in a lot of states. I don't have giant concerns about this, but others may feel differently.
And could I just ask a clarifying question? You had read language that was based on the Twin Spires comment, and had you adjusted it a little bit?
Yeah, I
If
had
you-
added the third. Twin Spires had said vulnerability and penetration. I added the risk assessment. Their language also, there's some, like it says, security assessment each year, completed each year. So you don't need two each year. So yeah, I changed a little of it, but yeah.
And Board Member Green, would you like to hear that proposed language one more time for your
No,
consideration? Okay.
I'm actually good with it. If, I think this is such a small thing. I mean, I think those reports are fine. I think we have the capacity to review them. If we can't settle the SSA 18 issue, I'm fine with the proposed language that Chair Silver did. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to go over that again?
Would you send me it in writing?
Yeah, do you have a written version of it? Or if not, then let's go over it one more time. If you don't have it in writing.
Yeah, so it'd be striking that definition, right?
Yep.
Type
Yep.
2, then in the actual audit section, which is 5.9.
Yeah.
Security assessment performed by an independent third-party security consulting firm shall be completed each year. Such assessment shall test the effectiveness of the ADW operator and applications, security controls which are in place in order to determine the overall threat of potential compromise to the ADW operator's network and/or applications. Such testing shall include at a minimum a vulnerability assessment, a penetration test, and a risk assessment of relevant applications and/or networks. A summary of the test which identifies any deficiencies shall be submitted to the board no later than 30 days after the assessment is conducted and shall include the ADW operator's plans to remediate any identified deficiencies.
And do you want to strike language you did not read out loud?
Yeah.
Such as that parentheses? Okay. Okay.
I just have a procedural question. I know that often, when I receive an SSA 18 or a vulnerability assessment or a pen test, we've been asked to sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, to view those. Is that something that the state does as a matter of course, or something the state won't do?
Absolutely. Especially, so if it's pre-contract with the cloud service providers, we'll sign a mutual NDA. And then as a part of the procurement process, there's a standard NDA that the state signs with anybody doing business with them.
Thank you for that information.
And for the board's purposes, there's certain information that is designated confidential by statute when held by the board that may apply to various parts of these reports.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, got that resolved. All right, the next issue was licensing. There are some concerns about the language as to whether it would affect employees outside of Maine, who exactly, if it was key executives or others. Need to clarify that. And so one of the comments was that employees who are not located in Maine and not involved in the control of the conduct of the licensee's operations would not be subject to license. requirements, which, is generally what we're going for. We can massage the language, but is that, my thought was it would be employees who actually, I don't know if it's in a management position but sort of the key people, not, the lower level employees. Any thoughts on that? Okay.
And are you proposing a language change to? the existing?
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
working on it.
Okay.
I'm looking at the,
This is subsection 2, licensing for advanced deposit wagering.
yes,
That we're looking at.
yeah. So I don't know how we want to specifically change that language.
You can use what's in other areas where it talks about somebody that has significant oversight
Yeah,
over someone else.
that's what I would adopt. Isn't that in the casino?
And Milt, can you find some actual language? Because they're going to need to actually discuss the specific.
I assume it's in the licensing for the casino.
Yeah, I'm going to there now. Thinking.
All right, let's, should we,
Yeah, you can move on.
Okay.
Try to find it.
all right. See what the other one was. It was about advertising, hold on. Yeah, okay. It's section 8, promotion and advertising. There were some comments about, sort of what needed to be tracked and held on to, sort of the all advertising issue. And then there's some issue with, what sort of 800 number would be provided. So we got some comments on that. I think we agreed on the 800. The issue was about the preservation and what ads the operators needed to preserve. So with that, I think to be more precise, we didn't want to drag in sort of the universe of Google ads and all of that. I think we could adopt the text, Twin Spires comment. And so you want me to read it? Okay, all right. So it'd be no advanced deposit wagering operator shall allow, conduct, or participate in any false or misleading advertising concerning its wagering operations. B, all advertising and marketing materials published, aired, displayed, or distributed by or on behalf of any advanced deposit wagering operator shall comply with the following. 1, must not directly advertise or promote wagering via mediums that appeal primarily to minors, i.e. children's television programming, children's publications, direct advertisements in schools. I should hope not. I added that part. For the avoidance of doubt, advertisements via mass media and or social media that incidentally are viewed by minors are not prohibited. That phrasing is to get at, if there's a Instagram post, how do you stop someone from looking at it? 2 shall contain a disclaimer displaying a prominent message providing the 1-800-GAMBLER hotline phone number for assistance. 3 shall contain a disclaimer stating that patrons must be at least 18 years of age or older to wager. 4 shall not imply greater chances of winning versus other advanced deposit wagering operators. 5 shall not imply greater chances of winning based on wagering in greater quantity or amount. 6, all direct marketing shall allow the option to unsubscribe. 7, depictions of the use of alcohol and tobacco are prohibited. 8, advertising must comply with all applicable Maine and federal laws. And then C, a record of the terms and conditions of all promotions made available to Maine residents shall be retained for no less than 24 months following the date of such promotion. So it's not a giant change from the original text, but I think clarifies a bit in terms of social media. So any issues with that?
Good change.
Okay. So that text, I just read this text.
Yep.
Okay, all right. We're good on that.
And just want to be clear, I'm toggling back and forth between the rules and what section and.
It's section 8, 2 through 3.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Page 10, board response is going to be, board accepts the italics above A, B, and C, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think the only missing piece was that license requirement.
Okay, we have. So you have definition of a key executive, which I don't think is actually one. I think the one, even though it says key personnel as well. An applicant licensee, including any executive employee or agent, having the power to exercise significant influence over decisions concerning any part of the applicant or licensee's relevant business operation.
That's it.
I still think there's another one about who has authority over another person. And that might be, well, this last one I read was from sports wagering. The other one, key executive, means any executive licensee having power to exercise a significant influence over decisions, same thing. But I'm almost positive that there's another one where it says where you have.
So, okay, so section 2.
Over another person.
Well,
So
I'm not as concerned about that. So section 2 is the board shall exercise authority over the licensing of all persons conducting advanced deposit wagering. A person may not conduct advanced deposit wagering without a license issued under this section. So what I think it should be is a person who, read the control thing, read that again.
yeah, key personnel of an applicant or licensee, including any executive employee or agent having the power to exercise significant influence over the decisions concerning any part of the applicant's or licensee's relevant business operation.
I think it should say a person who has authority, person who exercises significant authority or control over the operators what? Business?
Well, instead of influence over decisions, it's influence over the operation.
Yes, okay. So a person who exercises significant control or influence over the provider's operations may not conduct advanced deposit wagering without a license issued under this section. That makes sense. Does anyone take that down? You see what I'm trying to do with section 2?
Yeah. So I think
I think that's the easiest way to
give me 3 seconds.
fix that. See where I'm at.
I'm checking this.
So it will be key personnel of an applicant or licensee, including any executive, employee, or agent having the power to exercise significant influence over the provider's operation
Yeah, that's it.
concerning any part of the applicant or licensee relevant business operation.
It's that middle phrase would be inserted. A person with all of that may not conduct advanced deposit wagering without a license issued under this section.
I will also just point out to the board that there is a relatively clear definition already in the statute about this, and this may
cool.
not need to be separately defined here, where what you're attempting to accomplish in the rule is to just generally say who is covered and who has to have a license, when the statute already speaks generally to who has to have a license. So you may just want to strike
What's the statute?
this section. This is Title 8, Section 1015. License required. A person may not be employed by a slot machine operator, casino operator, slot machine distributor, table game distributor, gambling services vendor, or advanced deposit wagering licensee unless the person is licensed to do so by the board temporarily. And then there's some temporary language. So
But I thought there was
I'm
a-
not sure if the intent is to expand who has to have a license.
The extent was
beyond the
to try to narrow it. 'Cause I think they felt that that definition was that anyone would have to get.
Well, and maybe the specificity is that the connection that needs to be made in the language is that they are a person who is employed in Maine or has exercises control over business operations in Maine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
That's
think.
what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Okay.
So what you just said, like I would insert it after a person, yeah,
Person who, and this is the has power to exercise control. You were looking for a different verb, maybe? Were you happy with has power?
that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the response, if you're, I need like 4 screens for this.
So this is 2 licenses for advanced deposit wagering, right?
Yeah,
We're at, okay,
yeah, it's on the basis statement, it's combined as 2-3.
yes.
But what I want to do is in section 2, it reads, the board shall exercise authority over the licensing of all persons conducting advanced deposit wagering, period. And then a person who has power to exercise control over the operator's business in Maine may not conduct advanced deposit wagering without a license issued under this section. I think we got it. Terry, Joe, that makes sense?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
All right. Everyone got that?
Yep.
Okay.
Just have to forward that to me.
And I think it helps everybody. So, all right. All right, I think we resolved everything. No,
So that response that you just did will also be the same response for.
it's like the bottom of page 4 of the basis statement.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, it's page 5. Or is that something different? No, that, yeah.
No.
okay. It's different.
Oh, we got it. We did the,
3.6 and 3.5 talk about the fees and all that, and that's already been squared away.
we did the audit, we did the promotion and advertising. I think we got it.
Mazel tov.
Rulemaking is so much fun. Okay, anything else you need from us, Mill, on that? I mean, we'll get the,
So, we'll have
we'll get the text over.
we'll have a legal meeting on Friday and follow up, because got bits and pieces, so, yeah.
Okay,
And.
well, this is being recorded,
obviously,
so you can
recorded, so I can
play me back. Okay, all right, great.
And one question we will verify, I think Phil and I just briefly consulted, and we'll just flag that this may be a substantial change requiring republication. So we'll verify that. And if republication is required, we'll make sure that that happens.
Okay, yeah. I don't anticipate there would be further comments, given the changes we made, so that's fine. All right, anything else we need to do with that? Okay, moving on, what?
So we have the next meeting's in May. I need my marking orders between now and then. So if it's the conclusion that we have to republish, do I have to wait till May to get your approval to republish, or?
Well, not if we're getting together in April for the other thing. We could just vote.
Yeah, no, but I don't have anything in writing yet.
The board could right now provisionally vote that if the legal advice is that after analysis, this is a substantial change requiring republication, the board could vote now that if that's the advice, to authorize the executive director to go ahead and republish the rules.
So we're not waiting until May to, If you.
I would move that.
Let's do that. That sounds great. I'll second it. Let's take a roll call vote. Ms. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Hanslip?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Thank you.
That's a if, maybe.
If. How many lawyers does it take to complete ADW rules? Okay. New business, Hollywood. ACSC upgrade. You wanna? Yeah, we need you over here for the camera.
Solar Executive Director Champion, thanks for giving me some time to talk about the exciting world of AS400s.
Is it more exciting than ADW?
I don't think it is. So I'll set that standard right away. My name is Jason Gittle. I'm the Regional IT Director for Penn Entertainment for the Northeast, which includes Pennsylvania, Maine, Massachusetts, Maryland. I don't know why they consider Maryland Northeast, but they do. And that brings me up here today because I believe that the executive director wanted us to provide some information on a maneuver we're trying to do from an IT perspective on hosting our gaming system. You may know it as ACSC, provided by a vendor by the name of Light and Wonder. Used to be the old Scientific Games. And some brief, climbing in altitude, some brief overview is that all 8 properties in our region are operating off of ACS, Light Wonder's ACSC software, all the same version, all the same GLI approval process for each of the jurisdictions, I think with the exception of Pennsylvania, who does their own testing. But we're all there. And so that's why do I mention that to you? That's what led us to this discussion. So now that we're all on the same software, all of our brick and mortar casinos, we're trying to reduce our CapEx and OpEx footprint. This is mainly a play to do that as far as the servers that provide the access to this software. The other reason we're doing this is an expertise move. AS400s are not common anymore. They used to be way back in the 70s and 80s. We're still using the technology because of their dependency. their reliability. And so what Penn Entertainment has been doing is in a roughly 5 to 7 year cycle, replacing its AS400s. And when you do that, you have to buy two, right? You buy a production box and a backup box. And it's about $500,000 every 5 years per property. So one of the reasons is to reduce that footprint, the CapEx footprint we're spending, and the other reason is to provide expertise. We have in Plainville and in our Massachusetts property, our regional AS400 experts. They're difficult to come by, very rare to find. And when you find a good one, you try to take advantage. So that's the what and the why. We're proposing to move your AS400s that are currently housed at the Bangor property down to the Massachusetts Plainridge Park property within Penn Entertainment. And so and it's not a new request. The first that I can recall was I was involved in opening the Atlantis in the Bahamas. Their AS400s back in 1998 were located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So this is by no means technically a stretch. It is, we're doing it now in our Pennsylvania properties, Ohio properties, Louisiana properties. We're about to come online with our shared AS400s in our Mississippi properties. And so we're proposing the same answer or the same solution between Massachusetts and Maine. Again, why are we moving to Massachusetts rather than moving Massachusetts up to Maine is we have our experts in Massachusetts for this hardware. So that's just kind of a brief history. I think back in late 2021, we approached Executive Director Champion and his counterpart for the Mass Gaming Commission. We have achieved approval from the Mass Gaming Commission on this solution. And we're here to provide any answers, any questions that you may have, just some mitigating things that having listened, it was an interesting conversation on the SOC 2 stuff, and be willing off the record, provide you what we're doing in other jurisdictions there, but, or on the record. But the architecture is simple, and I'll try to keep this brief because there's no way it's exciting, is our gaming system has 3 tiers. I was explaining this to Vicky on Friday, but we have the slot machine at its base. It connects up through the magic of networks to a middle tier set of Windows servers, which we call game nets, or Light & Wonder refers to as game nets. And those are the servers that run the slot machines, that collate the data, collect the data from within the building at Bangor. The AS400s are simply to collate 2 things: slot configuration and customer data, player tracking data. And so we have successfully, as I said, rolled this out in 4 other jurisdictions, sharing at most 6 casinos on one set of AS400s, higher level information. El Dorado, all 26 of their AC locations are on the same. So our competitors are doing the same thing. Caesars, BLB, Bally's, who I worked for 13 years, was doing this in the early 2000s. And so it's time. We're hoping to gain favor from you folks, answer any questions you might have from a security perspective, from a data storage perspective. I'm here fully prepared to talk about all of those details if you'd like. But I figured I'd cover in some kind of quick fashion what we think is what you're looking for security-wise. What will connect the 2 properties is dark fiber. So those of you in the IT realm that have been talking, I understand what dark fiber is. It is a circuit provided by AT&T, but we're the ones managing it. And that's an important distinction to make, is we're not paying AT&T to manage it. It's dark. The hardware, the electronics, the routers, firewalls, switches, everything that makes this a network and sits on either end of this circuit are maintained by Penn Entertainment. So there's no architecture difference other than the location of the server. The IP schematics, all maintained internally. So at no point, and I guess this is the simplest way to say it, at no point does the data traverse outside of Penn Entertainment's control. private control. And so that would be no different than it exists now. For those of you IT folks in the room, the IP scheme that is currently in place at Hollywood Bangor stays. There's no changes. To be honest with you, and again, I'm addressing the IT folks in the room. And not that I'm implying we would ever do this, but if we changed it tonight, no one would ever know from a login perspective. The credentialing folks are still your local licensed IT people at Plainridge, at Hollywood Bangor. Although it is worthy of noting that all of our IT people in the region are registered with every jurisdiction in the region. So the Massachusetts IT people maintain Maine Gambling Control Board licenses. And we've been doing that for about 5 to 6 years now. So that's it at a high level. The dark fiber, the IPs don't change. We have tested this. I do have Director Champion, I'm sorry, Mallory, because this was a Friday conversation with Vicki, but I do have copies of the original submission that we made back in 2021. I'll leave them with Mallory if you'd like, and we can also provide it electronically to you. In this document, folks, it describes the network architecture, all of the drawings, things along those lines, that the pros and cons, the current state, the future state, what the differences are. But just to kind of close up the what and the why, excuse me, folks. Some of the questions we've had from other jurisdictions from a security perspective and a redundancy perspective is that we do, and it's interesting, you were listening to your previous conversation, we do in Massachusetts, we are required in Massachusetts to provide a penetration test from an independent testing firm, a network reliability test, a network architecture test. So every year we contract with a company called Netrix. They're a fairly large player in the industry. They used to be known, for those security people in the room, as B2B security. I think they just changed that this year. So we would be happy at the board's request and at the executive director's request to provide those annual reports, which would include this connection we're proposing today. So we can offer that. I told you, it is not a hash, executive director, it's not a hash changing or GLI event. We're simply moving the server that the software we already have GLI approval for is located on. And it's important to know that we're not commingling Maine and Massachusetts data. They will exist on separate partitions within the same server. So at no point does the Massachusetts folks have access to the Maine data and the Maine folks have access to the Massachusetts data, with the exception of PenGen, which is our corporate wide that we've already discussed with you folks in depth. That's the only place we're commingling data, is our PenGen software that provides us value of a customer across the entire portfolio of all 42 properties. So when you log in, when the folks in Maine log into ACSC, they will still be logging into a Maine-only instance of ACSC that operates on its own partition with its own security and its own set of IPs. At this point, I feel like I'm being redundant. I would ask you if you all had any questions or any concerns on any level. And what we're looking to do is make sure that we've communicated this to you, that we're not running afoul of any regulations or controls, and we stand ready to provide any information you'd like.
Ms. Green, you got any questions or comments?
I think this is a good move. I have no concerns about the architecture. I have concerns about having AS400 expertise out in the field still. I think they're kind of dying off, literally. So I think the consolidation makes a lot of sense from a service and support perspective. And I would hope at some point, perhaps your, Penn in general moves off an AS400 to a platform that will have more generational support.
I would agree with you, Ms. Green, and there are already underway studies on how to get off that platform, but I don't think we're talking in the next couple of years. It's a fairly large investment.
Absolutely understood.
Yes, ma'am.
glad she's here because I don't know what. You know, there. We have to approve anything or?
No,
Okay.
and I would encourage you not to, unless you're making a written request to change something in particular about the mics or something. I think this has just been an introductory.
Yeah, well, my read is that there are no controls that specifically speak to this. So I was prepared today to take security questions or, you know, how we're protecting our data. The other thing I failed to mention is that your data storage array is entirely separate from Massachusetts. So when I tell you that there's physical and software layer separation, it's auditable, it's provable, and we'd be happy to provide any architecture documents you'd like to support that.
But just to be clear, we are asking for approval to proceed. We are prepared to make this, to move the physical servers.
Yes, sir. We have made all of the necessary arrangements to make sure, and we've tested the circuit, we just have not put your data anywhere other than your servers yet. The next step with your blessing is to push your replication of your data over across to the new servers in Massachusetts and let the local folks test throughput. We would do it while we're shut down over the course, over the course of an evening. But we are looking to get there as quickly as possible.
I'm not sure there's anything we need to approve.
Well, I don't know what level of review the executive director or staff have done about this request. Have you done any assessment?
No, they were asking for my approval of it, but in the description of the approval, the words remote access were mentioned, and so I knew the board had some prior concerns around remote access, so that's why I asked for them to come and just make a presentation today so that at least the board would know, how this works.
And totally understandable take. I would share this, that this is not a remote access as much as it is a co-location.
All right, so this is still a closed network. We're not talking about remote access with any other entry. It's still a closed network. It's within your infrastructure.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Hardware and IP scheme level, all maintained by Penn Entertainment.
Yeah, so just a remote, really kind of a misnomer in this situation.
And I would just suggest, it sounds like you have received some sort of materials that have been submitted. I haven't seen those. I don't know if Phil has, and I don't know if the board has. If you've submitted anything in writing, I think the board should review that and see that, and we should just get a chance to look it over and would be happy to do so.
Absolutely. And I will leave you with a hard copy and I'll send electronic with it before I clear the building. And we stand by to give you any subsequent data requests you might to make you comfortable.
Great.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Then we could put it on the agenda for when we're up in Bangor.
Thank you. Thanks for the time.
Okay. Moving on, board business. One important announcement. We do have a potential fifth board member, Kelly Bickmore from Cape Elizabeth, has been nominated by the governor, and her confirmation hearing at the VLA committee is on March 27th, which then I think the whole Senate still needs to vote on, or no? Forget how that works.
Yeah, I think VLA committee approves it and then it goes through the chambers, yes.
So in theory, she should, be on for the May meeting, but we'll see. It's up to the legislature. That puts three of us down south. We should just hold meetings in South Portland, yeah, but so my, looking at her materials, she has deep ties into the harness racing industry, still is active in horse racing. So it'll be a potential fifth member, which is great. And that's all I got for board business. Any public comment?
Chair Silver, I just wanted to correct my my report. You challenged me there about the no violations, and there are some that are pending. I just don't have that stat right now. I just wanted to clarify that.
I thought you guys were perfect.
I know, they were doing a pretty good job.
She made a public comment. I don't think she can back up on it. Dismissed.
We'll take a look at it. Any other public comment on Zoom? The hand function? Okay, so for the board, there may be this emergency rule, which we'll do via Zoom in April. It may not happen. It's up to the legislature if they, or the governor, right?
Yeah, this one, it's up to the governor. Once, if and when she signs it, then I'll reach out to you, Mr. Chair, and
We'll figure that out. But our next regular meeting is May 21st up at Hollywood Casino. So looking forward to it. Assuming we're not creating a major burden, I'd like to do one at each property a year. I think that's a good, get the board in, in the building. Realizing as I was looking at like hotel prices, like for the night before, like, oh, it's May, it's almost Memorial Day. So expensive time up in Bangor, but we'll be good. So there will be a Zoom option, right? I think we're gonna try to make that happen, but if you can be there in person, come on up. So that'll be great. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Green.
I'll second it. Ms. Green, take a roll call vote. Mr. Hanslip,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Chief March left early. So we are adjourned.
Thank you.